Hello and welcome back to the Student StarCraft AI Tournament 2020-2021 broadcast. This is Nightcat.
And I'm Chobo Swaggins.
And together we are going to be bringing to you today the losers round 6 between Banana Brain and Monster, and then the finals between the winner of that matchup and Stardust. So let's go ahead and hop into game 1 of our losers round 6.
Here in the bottom right, we can see Monster as the teal Zerg spawning on La Mancha. And in the top right, we have Banana Brain, the orange Protoss, spawning in the top right.
And real quick note here, as many of you know, there was no broadcast last week on Sunday. We had some technical difficulties where there were issues with the replays for this matchup actually being lost. The actual results were properly recorded though. So what we've done with permission from both authors is we have acquired replays between these two that match the results that were recorded to cast. So that way you can still see these two top bots slug it out in exciting fashion. But unfortunately, these are not the actual games that took place in the tournament. So we do apologize for that.
Yep, and we're already seeing the beginning of the game. We see Forge Fast expand from Banana Brain at its natural. I'm kind of curious whether or not that probe is trapped there behind that doodah, because that could be an interesting situation there. Looks like it's bringing out a second, brought out a second probe to make those cannons. So
yeah, I think that that probe is stuck, so that's going to hurt being down one worker already.
Absolutely, but 3 cannons should hold any pressure from the Zerglings that are coming forward. It was an overpull, so not exceptionally aggressive, and it has transitioned well into a natural expansion here.
Yeah, and it also Monster ended up finding this positioning as the last one. It scouted the other bases before it found Banana Brain.
Mm-hmm. So it looks like it is going. Monster is going for a third base already. Most likely going into 3 base Hydralisk play, which is what we've seen from this AA quite a number of times already in this tournament.
Yeah, it is already getting the gas. Yeah, I'm kind of watching to see if we get that lair or if we get that Hydralisk stand first.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've noticed. Seems that sometimes small fluctuations in how the early game goes makes it such that bots, like, their timing will be slightly off about when they start their layer. You know, like, it finishes well before the Hydra is done, for example, or the other way around. But in general, the build orders are still correct. So not seeing a layer here and seeing Hydralisk speed being upgraded, I think we are going to be seeing that heavy Hydralisk play from 3 bases.
Yeah, I wonder if it's going to go for some type of bust or something. I mean, you know, that's, I think, something I've seen in the past Zergs do. You get up against the Forge Fast Expand, you just try to get enough Hydralisks powerful enough, quickly enough to break it before the Protoss can really benefit from that economy of that quick second base.
Yeah, absolutely. And Purple Wave said that that's one of the most challenging things about scripting Zerg bots, from, if I recall correctly from our conversations, because you need to recognize how many cannons there are, you need to balance your economy really well, and you need to decide to just put all your resources into Hydralisks for this one timing, which in like small fluctuations in how many cannons there are, how much ground army there is, what the micro is like, it's easy to kind of underproduce Hydralisks and end up behind as a result if you don't make that bust. So we do see Monster opting for a more defensive strategy with sunken colonies placed at both the natural and the third base.
Yeah, and I noticed too, again, Monster, before even getting, did it get its lair? I don't think it did. Yeah, it didn't yet, but it got Burrow.
Yeah, and that has proven to be quite annoying for a lot of AI that it's faced up against in the past. 12 o'clock already having a burrowed Zergling there preventing any third base attempt that would be coming in from Banana Brain. And that is probably the location where Banana Brain would like to take that third. We see the probe heading up there now to get bamboozled.
Yep.
Inching forward slightly, it's like trying, and then suddenly just no more.
Yeah, that is something. It will prevent the Protoss from being able to expand until it can get that mobile detection, unless it decides to invest in cannons. But if it tries to get a cannon, then that Zergling can just wreak havoc up there for a little bit.
Absolutely. We've seen these burrow Zerglings sometimes snipe the probes before they could place down something. I do want to note that this bridge here really helped out Monster in the engagements against the Dragoons. It's kind of like a meat grinder on this map because the AI doesn't like to path through the center a lot. It likes to just engage over that narrow bridge, and sometimes it just turns out really unfavorable for one of the AI. But here it looks like the Dragoons should be a decent number enough to clean this up, but Hydralisks are doing a great job of holding the bridge there.
Yeah, it's just interesting about the pathing of the Hydralisks. It looks like what they wanted to do was actually take out that probe that's trying to build that third base, because they were just running past the natural and towards that location. But yeah, like you said, it looks like the Dragoon numbers were enough, and also I think just what Monster was trying to do was enough for Banana Brain to be in a pretty safe position up there.
The Observer is here now. The Dragoons are going to take out that Zergling, allow the third Nexus to be placed, but Monster has been on 3 bases with a ton of hatcheries for quite some time. Worker count, it's 10 behind the Protoss, which is pretty standard for this phase of the game, but I do feel that third base being delayed is going to hurt Banana Brain a bit.
Yeah, this might hurt too, with Banana Brain's army kind of getting flanked and like separated. Half of it's pushing into the natural, but the other half is just getting slaughtered over at that base up above it.
Oh yeah, and the Dragoons are just running into those sunken colonies too. They did take down 2, but at what cost? Once Protoss loses their massive ball, especially if they're with a delayed third base, it could be really hard to climb back into this game.
Yeah, I think the army, essentially, so it looks like you were talking about how bots tend to not like to take that middle path. It looks like that's what Monster's actually preferring, and it's working in its favor because Banana Brain is just trying to go across that bridge and then essentially getting flanked based on Monster's positioning at that time.
Yeah, and I do want to go back to that moment that we saw on the bridge when Monster was the one that was defending the narrow spot at the 12 o'clock base. The way that the Hydralisks held that ramp in a perfect arc, it was the most cost-effective way to hold that position, and then they ran away through that central high ground position. This is all, turned into kind of an avalanche of units coming into the natural here.
Yeah, this is looking very strongly in Monster's favor at the moment, and it's really just been about army positioning and when it's engaging and the pathing it's choosing through the map, which, like we both said, that's just something that has been lacking in the bot community for quite some time, so it's exciting to see that.
Yeah, and I want to make a note about the decision making here too. At first I thought it was kind of questionable, the fact that Monster didn't push further into the natural, take out the Nexus maybe or something like that. But actually the idea to run back to this third base, the more I'm looking at it, the more I'm liking it, because of the fact that Monster is so confident with that bridge micro. Look at that, the Hydralisks pounce on the most exposed Dragoon, and then they come back. Like the Nexus has lost all the probes there. Worker count now firmly in favor of the Zerg.
And then I noticed too that once that Protoss army was getting small enough, when it felt confident enough, that's when it brought the entire army across the bridge again. So that's really amazing to see there.
Yeah, the movement, the decision making, and we've seen plenty of storm dodges and Reaver Scarab damage mitigation, spreading out the units, and it really makes me question what unit is there that can beat the Hydralisk. The Hydralisk is one of the best bang for your buck units in the game, and so easy to mass. So I'm worried about the future of Protoss, not just in this tournament, but in AI world in general.
Yeah, that reminds me, there was a thing I saw TSC Moo did once, I believe it was, with Terran, where it was going Marine Medic against Protoss, and it had some really scary spread out logic against Storms. And we just saw 3 Storms, and not a single Hydralisk died from the storm.
Yeah. That's incredible. I mean, that is going to just mitigate all the advantages that Protoss has as a race. The AoE, splash damage, spells and abilities are what keep it alive against Zerg. And here, the flood of Zerg units is just proving way too much for Banana Brain here. Yeah,
and Monsters also managed to take the top left and the bottom left base now. So just, at this point, it's just clean up for Monster. But incredible performance from Monster in this game with the spatial awareness on the map, the decision-making that it did. Now, I think a couple of Hydralisks there just fell to a storm just because there wasn't space. But
so I definitely think that the one engagement that fell through at the 3 o'clock base for Banana Brain is what really caused this game to spiral out of control so fast. But the only reason that they were in that position in the first place is because of the fact that Monster just had better pathing, and maybe there was a little bit of luck involved, but ultimately it plays out just like it would in a human versus human game. You're on 2 base as Protoss, you lose your main army, you most likely lose the game.
Yeah, and I just noticed too, there's been 3 Corsairs floating above the natural of Monster, just scared to dive in there. This whole game just about.
Yeah, just outside the range of the spore colony they're staying, it looks like. And the Overlords, of course, are staying, tightly pressed up against it. So
yeah. Now, this is a little bit interesting here, how Monster kind of backed off here and into the middle. So I've sped the game up a little bit at this point because it looks like Monster, after killing all the units, has decided to not kill the buildings.
Yeah, that's strange to me as well.
And it's also maxed out at 200.
Mm-hmm. Still expanding though, making sure that the other AI isn't hiding anywhere. I think maybe this Mutalisk that's dancing around that it can't decide to engage or not. It's like I want to kill with Mutalisks, but there's only one, so I'm scared. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. With that, the replay is going to end. And for game 2, we find our 2 fighters on Fighting Spirit. We've got Banana Brain spawning as the brown Protoss in the bottom right of the map.
And in the bottom left, we have Monster spawning as the purple Zerg, sending its Overlord in the correct direction of its opponent, so it will get the scout off first.
And just to comment really quick, I've realized that I had the wrong bot names displayed. I think it was Varian, Deveka, and Dragon, I think it was. So I had a cached version of an image up there, but it is correct now. And it is showing that Monster did indeed win the last game. We were discussing it. We think that Banana Brain actually tapped out when the last Corsair was destroyed.
Mm-hmm. And I want to comment that I really love Banana Brain's approach here when it didn't get the first scout with that first probe. This is actually exactly the build that I do when I'm going Forge Fast Expand. You send the second probe that builds the Forge, you scout both main bases at roughly the same time. That way you can't really ever get caught with your pants down against a fast pool build. But in this case, it was again overpool going into a hatchery at 12.
Yeah, and to comment further on that, I noticed that the probes got to both of the bases on the left side at roughly the same time. So that seems pretty well timed out there by Banana Brain.
Yep, absolutely. It's very, very nicely done. And we do see one cannon coming up after the Nexus. Before, I think last game we saw 3 cannons before Nexus, if I'm not mistaken. So this is a much more economical approach. It does have the gateway on top of the Forge. This is a very clean wall off here.
And I wonder if that was due to scouting, because I actually can't remember if Banana Brain got a scout off on Monster early in that game or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Maybe it was just a safe play to start the series off, I guess. Obviously, there's not a lot of such thing as mentality, but maybe there was some learning algorithm that, it just got rushed the last game or something, and that's why it went for 3 cannons. But last game, in this case, Monster went for this 3 base Hydralisk slab. Well, actually, it's layer this time in the main base of Monster, coming up earlier and before Hydralisk then.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if it's going to go Mutalisk then this time. Because, yeah, just what you were commenting about, though, with mentality, like, that's something that these AI are kind of oblivious to. Like, they're not aware that they're fighting in an elimination tournament right now. Especially when, they were also part of a round robin right beforehand, and they're not allowed to change anything about the bot in between. So there has been talk about, supplying that type of information to bots if they choose to use it. But I don't believe that anybody's really pushing for that in the AI scene right now.
I see. It should be noted that it is indeed Mutalisks coming up. The gas was placed at a really nice timing midway through the layer. Should give Monster enough resources to have about, I want to say, 8 Mutalisks, maybe even 9 by the time the Spire finishes.
And Banana Brain also kicked up to 4 gateways, it looks like. Well, 5 with the one up at the front. So it looks like he's going to be pumping out Dragoons, decent number of them pretty soon here.
Yeah, so Dragoons from 5 gateways certainly can hold their own against the initial few waves of Hydralisks being produced from 3 bases, but against Mutalisks, it's a little bit more dicey of a situation. It's got to come down to the micro. There are 3 Sunkens placed really nicely in this natural already for Monster. The Dragoons wander a little bit too far inwards and one goes down. I've really been surprised by how many Dragoons Banana Brain has been losing to Sunken colonies, really.
Yeah, the micro last game when it sort of suicided those Dragoons into the Sunkens kind of looked like it's micro against tanks.
Mm-hmm. And we do have about 7 or 8 Mutalisks out on the map already.
And
they've already done some damage in the natural already.
Yeah, they got some probe kills there, but the Corsairs were able to come in and sort of chase them out before too much damage could be done.
Yeah, absolutely, but the Mutalisks, they're kind of taking a lot of hits right now for no real reason or gain. Maybe they also didn't really need to be forced into a corner like that. They're taking a lot of stray hits here. You can't be affording to do that.
Yeah, now there are Hydralisks and Zerglings now out along with Scourge on the map, so it looks like it's already transitioning away from the Mutalisks.
And you have to wonder whether it was worth it or not. I mean, yes, it kind of curbs the threat of Corsairs. It forces the Protoss to maybe overproduce Corsairs, but in this case, especially after seeing last game, the Corsair party we had in the natural of in the natural of Monster just chilling there, the Sair usage has not been like a major concern, I think, in this playstyle from Banana Brain.
Yeah, I think if it could have got more damage, like on the natural maybe, or maybe handled the couple Corsairs that came out and pushed it away, it might have been able to get some sort of advantage from economic damage, but really the Mutalisks have just slowed down its plan, it feels like right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And we noticed that Banana Brain was able to take the third base quite easily this time around, and we're already seeing the difference in the worker count. 71 workers for Banana Brain, only 38 for Monster. I mean, the drawback of going for a Mutalisk build also, because they're so expensive and they have to come out at a certain timing, you don't have the opportunity to add those hatcheries and therefore really boom your economy when you have the opportunity to do so. So that is probably also contributing to the discrepancy with the first match.
Yeah, and interesting enough, the Mutalisks like dragged almost all the Dragoons up to the top left and then brought them to the natural at the same time that Banana Brain was coming into the natural with the rest of its army, and now it's hammering away at this, looking like it might bust this.
Yeah, the Dragoons dancing around quite nicely here, being aggressive here is certainly warranted as there's only one sunken left, but actually this one last wave of Hydralisks, maybe could it push back the Dragoons? I'm not seeing reinforcements really coming out from Banana Brain right now.
Yeah, and trying to get these Sunkens morphed here, trying to buy time with the Hydralisks might actually get some of these. We have Lurkers out on the field now, so it looks like Monster able to secure this natural.
Yeah, that was really surprising to me. I mean, Banana Brain has so much in the bank right now. 1,600 minerals is making Zealots in response to that fact that maybe could not afford Dragoons due to getting some upgrades or something. But it definitely took its foot off the gas at what could have been a crucial, pivotal moment there before the Lurkers were out, when there was only one sunk in the natural. But now Zerg has held on.
Yeah, and again, Banana Brain's army is just kind of chasing this Zergling up at the north here, finally getting it, but it's really out of position right now because I don't think this is going to take the natural, but Monster's hitting the natural while Banana Brain's army is just chasing down these burrowed Zerglings.
Yeah, absolutely. And also keep in mind that this is probably one of the most cost-effective Zerg armies that you'll ever see. You know, all of the late-game options that we discussed earlier, you know, Reavers, High Templar, they just do not work that well against Monster. So I feel like the longer this game goes, the more of an opportunity there is for Monster to hold on until it can make some make a comeback push. But as I say that, quite a number of Zealots here. Reavers will not miss against Lurkers. They can't be split away or run away from them. And this natural looks like it might go down here.
Yeah, wait, it's backing off though. I guess it...
Commentator's curse. Classic.
I'm guessing it didn't feel confident enough to push up into the main, which is fine, but it probably should have... Oh, wait. Did this desync, I wonder? No, they're coming back in. The reason why I'm wondering is because the drones have not unburrowed for Monster, which is a bit suspicious.
But also look at the top right. We just saw a lot of probes go down for Banana Brain. Hopefully, I think this still is a functional replay.
Yeah.
We killed the Zergling. Should be noted that Monster did take the top left base, but now it's a 5-base Protoss, well, soon to be 5-base, against a not even fully mining 4-base Zerg, and the natural is still kind of. Those drones got barbecued there in the natural.
Yeah, and they were burrowing and unburrowing there. So yeah, this is, and the new units are definitely moving out of Banana Brain's gateways and everything. So this is definitely still, Zerg units are still morphing from larva. So yeah, this is still a good game.
And that was such a great way to push your way up this ramp with those storms there, with the Zealots running up ahead. And yeah, with all this tech going down here, there's no tech in any of the other bases. We don't even have a layer. We won't have anything to produce available besides Zerglings, and even that is going to not be an option soon. I can't help but feel that Monster can't really dig its way out of this one now.
Yeah, so it seems like really maybe the turning point here is, well, first of all, Monster going with the Mutalisks at the beginning, slowing itself down. But also Banana Brain being able to get that third up really allowed its macro to take effect.
And possibly that also stems from the fact that it went for 1 cannon Nexus, I believe, as opposed to going for 3 cannons then Nexus as it did in game 1. So not only was it faster to the third base, it was faster to getting the natural as well. without that meat grinder of a bridge, it also had better army retention this time around as well. So I think that contributed. But as I say that, the zealots are running through a lot of lurker shots here.
And dropping the reavers down just to get the individual drones.
This is just a shredder of zealots here. Oh my god, they're just running back in trying to chase this one drone. These drones have been lethal to the zealot count.
They just keep on burrowing at just the right time. There's 3, 2, 1 makes it out with how much life? 4 life.
Yeah, 6 total when he ran out. He's like, you guys won't believe what just happened.
They're like, where are all your buddies? You took the base down.
Zealots are like dogs, they only know the stick, that's all they know. The drones were the stick, that's it. Doesn't matter if you're getting slaughtered or not, but I think it was too little too late either way. Although there isn't much like ground army here, and as I say that, of course, the Dragoons show up. The Reavers down in range, and wow, Monster drops the GG in chat. Wow.
Nice.
Sick.
All right, and that's exciting. So that brings us up to 1-1. So, this being a series best of 3 here, it's anyone's game. So let's go ahead and jump into 3 now.
Here in the top right, we have Monster spawning as the yellow Zerg on Benzene.
And down at the bottom left here, we have Banana Brain as the red Protoss. So both of these are fighting for the opportunity to get into the finals. This is the final game between these two. Winner take all.
Yeah, and this is also going to be the first 2-player map we see between these two. The previous 2 matches, of course, being on 4-player maps in La Mancha and Fighting Spirit. So it's going to be interesting to see what differences we see. Obviously, Banana Brain is not going to need 2 probes to scout, so that could translate into a slight eco advantage compared to even last game's fast expand.
And also something funny I just thought about too is in the last game I was talking about how the bots don't have the situational awareness of what's going on in the tournament necessarily. And then I remembered that these aren't the actual replays from the tournament. So these games are playing out as if they were the tournament games, essentially.
And it looks like the drone scout is going to be sent out. I'm not sure about this. Maybe feeling a little bit of urgency as it is placing down that natural hatchery. A 2-gateway build could be quite strong against an overpool into hatchery build, but no, in this case, it's actually Forged Nexus, then Cannon as a reaction to this build. And that is a little ballsy because, I mean, the Zerglings are already out on the map.
Yeah, Benzene does have, I think, one of the longest rush distances, though, doesn't it?
Yes, that's absolutely true. But they were chasing around the probe. I think if by the time that they got here, they might have been able to at least run by. You could get 2 Zerglings in the main base of your opponent, but in this case, it's not going to happen. The Zergling checks it out, sees that there's a cannon there, and is going to back up. But yeah, an even more economic opening from Banana Brain in Game 3 here.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if that can really work towards its advantage. And Monster now taking a 3rd down at the bottom right of the base, or map.
Yeah, this is the best quote-unquote base that you could take a Zerg, most likely. You don't really need 3 gases for Hydralisk production, to be honest. It could imaginably have taken that mineral only on the low ground. But going into looking to the future, taking this bottom right base is probably the best base, and the one that gives you most flexibility going into the mid game.
Yeah, and I did notice, yeah, you're right, that the Hydralisk Den did just finish. It's getting the Hydralisk speed, so it looks like we're going to see that same build from game number 1 in this particular game.
And it was definitely more successful than its attempt at Mutalisks in Game 2. They kind of got chased into a corner, took a lot of damage without doing much of their own damage there. Gateways are now being added. We're going up to 4 gateways in the back, 1 gateway still at the front, and it's going to be most likely that Dragoon production we saw before.
Yeah, this seems to be kind of like the standard way that this Forge Fest Expand works for Banana Brain is get that natural up with the 1 gateway, and then after some time, get 4 gateways all at once in the main.
And this time, it's skipped Stargate, or at least it's delaying it, which is interesting to me. Did it read something with its scouting probe to tell it that it's not Mutalisk this time around?
Yeah, that is a good question. I'm not sure, because I think in Game 1, I can't remember if in Game 1 it got Corsairs or not. It might have skipped them in Game 1 too.
No, in Game 1 they were hiding behind the natural, remember? Not being able to attack. Yeah. But no, the Stargate did get thrown down now, and as the same time as a 3rd base for Banana Brain as well.
Yeah, I guess I probably forgot about the Corsairs because they ended up being rather inconsequential since they kind of got held back by that one spore colony.
So again, we're seeing Banana Brain. I think this is not an engagement that it wants to take, and it trades a Zealot and quite a number of hits on its Dragoons. One of them already going down to its main health. So this is exactly how And now we're back into a slight meat grinder potential situation here with these double bridges.
Yeah, it seemed like Monster kind of over-chased there a little bit, losing a Hydralisk while retreating back to its Sunkens. But yeah, even if Banana Brain had chased all the way back to the Sunkens, it was not going to be breaking in yet.
And maybe it's possible that it pressured like that to get these scouting Zerglings out, because I noticed that that's the one thing it gained from moving out that way. These Zerglings were able to avoid the Protoss army, and now they're burrowed and scouting the expansions for Banana Brain, blocking the top left already.
Yeah, but Banana Brain's still able to get a third up, though, with that mineral-only base.
Mm-hmm. And Protoss probably relies more on gas at this stage of the game. You do want that third gas earlier so you can continue building High Templar, but as we've seen, High Templar not quite the answer against this Hydralisk play because of the splits, and actually so many Dragoons just went down there in that engagement.
Yeah, and that's where Banana Brain keeps pushing into this natural. I feel like, actually, does Banana Brain know about the bottom right base? I don't think it does.
Yeah, and it would be a difficult base to push up anyways. There is this reverse ramp here, which is a little buggy. There are two Sunkens on the high ground, and Hydralisk being so mobile would be able to reinforce quite easily, but it seems like they're both intent on bashing heads here. Monster taking a really conga line, inefficient engagement here, while the Dragoons from Banana Brain making a beautiful arc here.
Yeah, and at first the Dragoons were kind of just going in a straight line as well, but then when the Hydralisks start pushing them back is when they start to form that concave, and Monster really just can't quite fight out of this choke.
Yeah, it had a decent lead and momentum at one point, but then when it crossed the double bridges, it was fighting uphill against the Protoss, and I think that's what allowed the swing to come back in the other direction. But again, though, hemorrhaging these units, not sure if it's worth it for Banana Brain to lose all those Dragoons. None of the Sunkens go down. Production is still going to be great for Monster from all these hatcheries that it has.
Yeah, and something I'm noticing too, just watching this engagement, like the Zealots are spending their time killing the Zerglings, while the Sunkens are spending their time killing the Zealots. And then, you know, there were even Zealots that were in the mineral line, and I don't think they were really targeting the drones all that much. Mm-hmm. I've seen other Protoss bots, like, you know, if they dive in with their Zealots, those Zealots are high priority targeting the drones, and that's where the damage to the Zerg is done. But this is just allowing Monster to just replace units very quickly.
Yeah. So many Dragoons died without a purpose. Sometimes I like to think of the Protoss army, the Dragoon, as the backbone. You can't afford to lose all your Dragoons in almost any engagement, especially when you're opening with like a 5 gateway Dragoon build. However, it should be noted that Banana Brain did take that top left base, as well as starting the 11 o'clock base here as well, while Monster has been really kind of contained to 3 bases, which is not going to do long term against the 5 base Protoss.
Yeah, but and there's just the stream of Zealot death sound effects here at the natural. Again, just focusing on the units and not on the more expensive Sunkens. But it is... Yeah, the wave of reinforcement Hydralisk is able to clean it up.
Yeah, and the Reaver went down to Sunken Fire targeting as well. So dropping Reavers in range of the Sunkens, not ideal. And that's giving Monster some more room to breathe. But again, looking at the rest of the map, I think that Banana Brain has a better long-term viability to what it's doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, Monster is getting a fourth, or trying to establish a fourth and a fifth, it looks like. Interesting choice to be expanding kind of close to Banana Brain here instead of more in the middle bottom of the map. But that might actually be a little bit easier to defend with the ramp, perhaps. But the mineral only rather, being denied by Banana Brain here.
Yeah, and in theory it would be easier to, I was going to say that there's no lurkers, just as we get lurkers, of course, but again, are we going to see another natural bust? Because the Reavers, they do well against these lurkers. The lurkers don't fare well, and Banana Brain has decent Reaver micro. It's not usually getting taken out by Sunkens like this, so there is a possibility of a break here as Banana Brain takes the 1 o'clock expansion now on the top.
Yeah, I wonder if the Reavers are going to... Oh, and just like that, Monster just cleans up the attack.
But it's desperate to get economy going elsewhere on the map. Some of these drones might get caught out. They're coming from the main base, which is basically mined out. Income is definitely greater for Banana Brain. 74 workers, pretty much the ideal number that you want in PvZ, and it is still mining on 3 mineral lines, soon to be 4.
Yeah, and there are some Mutalisks like in the middle of the map. They were harassing that top, well, not quite the top left corner, but the top left middle base. But now they're coming back into the natural to try and help defend here.
Yeah, these burrow zerglings are, I'm sorry, burrow drones are hurting. They're saving their lives, but it's also hurting the income quite a bit. It's making it harder and harder to hold. Having to burn some drones here to add the sunken colonies as well. Not able to put down an expansion. Wow, a nexus thrown down. Bad manner banana brain here at the 4 o'clock mineral only. Look at that.
Yeah, that's. But I mean, that's the only open expansion now, except for the bottom middle is open.
Yeah. This is that get out move, like, yo, no, you're not getting this base, it's mine, leave the game. That's basically what Banana Brain is saying, and it looks like Banana Brain, I mean, there are some Mutalisks being annoying at the, like, 1 o'clock-ish base, killing probes, but the economy is still in favor of Banana Brain at the end of the day.
Yeah, but Banana Brain just still not quite able to crack this natural. It looks like maybe now?
Yeah, it did kill quite a number of Sunkens there. The Reavers are doing a lot of damage here. One Reaver does go down. The Lurker does go down, though, but there's like no army left now after that.
I'm going to try and check the upgrades here real quick on these Hydralisks. They're 1-1. We've got the Dragoons at 1-2, or 2-1, yeah.
Yeah, so definitely a good place to be as a Protoss. Not really sure why there's not enough upgrades for Banana Brain. I'm sorry, for either player, really. At this point, both should be at 3-3, no questions asked. But looks like prioritizing army production throughout the entirety of the game has led to this position.
Yeah, and I mean, I can kind of understand from Monster's perspective because it's kind of been low on bases, but it should be glad that Banana Brain really hasn't pushed the upgrades very much because that's allowing Monster to sort of stay in this game.
Yeah, absolutely, and Banana Brain does have a lot of gas in the bank, so it's not that it's gas starved. Perhaps we notice that there's not a lot of Templar usually in these battles, and that's because they have been not quite successful in the past. But I mean, it's another hold from Monster. It's going to throw down some more Sunkens, but how long can it keep going like this? It should be noted that it has been more cost efficient throughout this whole time than Banana Brain.
Yeah, they're like almost at the same supply usage. Mm-hmm. Which is not the position you want to be in as Protoss. Protoss just keeps trying to crack this natural, and it can't.
And the probe count is staying stable for Banana Brain, but that's because it's constantly producing probes to make up for the ones that it's losing. It's spending a lot of its money into probe production right now. I see at least 4 next side we're pumping at the same time. That's 200 minerals per tick, you know?
While we've been watching the natural, there are Mutalisks all over the side, or Banana Brain's side of the map, just sniping probes right now at various different bases, catching them in transitions, and I think that's causing problems here for Banana Brain.
Absolutely, and if you look at the cannon placements, especially in these top bases, the cannons are to the left of the Nexus if you look at the top right base, and the Mutalisks have free reign behind that middle line. They have it as well here at the 11 o'clock to some extent, as you can see here, and it's actually going straight for the cannon. If it takes down this cannon, it could do even more damage over here. Yeah,
I mean, there's definitely enough Mutalisks to take on a cannon if it chooses to, but right now it's just prioritizing the probes, which I agree with, hurting that economy.
Sorry, go ahead.
Or no, go ahead.
4 o'clock, you see the Lurker on the top of the ramp. It's killing these probes, and it has 25 kills already.
Oh, wow.
So the economy is getting hurt bad, but at the same time, we're still seeing pressure at the natural from Banana Brain. It's not getting the sunken. Monster's not getting the Sunkens up fast enough.
Yeah, but Monster was able to repel it, and it managed to get the Reaver because it got dropped kind of in range again of those Sunkens. I wonder if that cliff is just causing problems with wanting to drop them off. And now that mineral only, the rest of the probes are finished off with the help of the Mutalisks.
Yeah, and the Lurker is still there. 30 kills now for it. That's, if you could think about the fact that Banana Brain is constantly replacing those probes, it's still at 69 probes right now. That means that this Lurker alone has cost 1,500 minerals to Banana Brain and slowed down the economy at the same time. It's worth its weight in gold in this position here.
Yeah, and thinking about it, like, so Banana Brain right now is at about 60 probes with around 110 to 120 supply, and generally Protoss units are 2 supply, the army units.
Yeah.
So that means there's like 30 army units either in production or out at any given time-ish.
And that is not a game-winning ball of Protoss army. Like, 30 supply of Protoss is nothing, basically. I mean, it's not that Monster has all that much, but as I say that, is now 40 supply ahead of Banana Brain. What a turnaround here, mostly on the back of these Mutalisks.
Yeah, the Mutalisks are doing... Yeah, they're doing exactly what you said. They're just draining Banana Brain's income. Like, not only is the income just going down, it just has to spend so much to replace all these probes that it keeps losing.
Yeah, and it doesn't have any seem to have any sense of the fact that like there's a limited number of resources on the map. You don't need 74 probes in order to mine 2 mineral lines. That's when you start thinking to yourself, okay, I should stop spending money on probes, focus on army, so I can end this in one punch. And its refusal to do so, I think, has to have cut into its army production.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's something that typically games don't go to this level when it comes to AI, or like this long, I guess I mean, where the entire map ends up mining out. So I don't think that's something that a lot of AI is built to consider, that situation happening.
Well, this lurker is at 55 kills, and I do want to note that we are passing the 45-minute mark. So does that mean that it would go by score at this point? Because in that case,
no, it's I think 60 minutes is the limit.
Okay, that would make sense. But so then this lurker can continue chipping away at this economy with 57 kills now, 58 make that. Oh my goodness, that's so frustrating to see if you're a Protoss.
It's funny because what this kind of reminds me of is like when I watched Artosis streaming and he's doing Terran versus Terran, how those games oftentimes end up being like where you split the map and you mine out the map and you start like sacrificing workers so you can get more army supply, and that's just exactly not what Banana Brain did here.
Exactly, absolutely. And if I've been looking at the production tab, but it's just probe. It's not getting any army out. The army has been stagnant this whole time. Now there's basically no income on the map. Only 8 probes left in total, 6 now, and not enough money to make another one. I mean, this.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and all the bases that Banana Brain occupied, the main, the whole left side of the map here, and then the top 2 bases here. The only one that really has minerals left is the one closest to Monster by air distance. And now Monster's taking that over. So Banana Brain blew through so many minerals for workers. That's just crazy to me.
And I mean, there was also those not insignificant trades that it was taking in the natural of Monster, continuously hemorrhaging Dragoons. Going in a little bit too hard, maybe dropping the Reaver inside sunken range a few too many times. That is a loss of minerals as well. It was basically trying to bust Monster for the majority of this game until it just ran out of steam.
Yeah, and that's where I was thinking, I mean, I know that bottom right is not so easy to push into, but I almost wonder if it would have been more successful had it targeted, not essentially the main base, because that's something I think a lot of human players do early in their careers too, is they focus on just, I got to kill their main to win, and it's like, no, you just need to kill their economy to win. Yeah. So go after the other bases that aren't so easy to reinforce. And now, like you said, I know Monster could flank and things like that, so maybe it still would have played out the same, but it might have been a little bit easier to crack that base down at the bottom right, or at the very least, if you at least temporarily disable it, then it has to be built back up.
Yeah, the other point to note is the fact that unlike human players who place a lot more hatcheries generally at their third base, it's not unusual to see 3 hatcheries there at the third base. We see a lot of hatcheries placed inside the main for Monster. That means that is really the power hub, where most of the production is going to come from. So defensively, that is a major boon. That is like where Monster is strongest on the map, is with its production. 6-7 hatcheries behind it. That's where you're not going to be able to bust through. And Banana Brain perhaps not recognizing that fact and spending a little bit too much of its money on those failed attempts to bust is what led to this result.
Yeah, I think a lot of the engagements, what I noticed is like a round of Hydralisks would finish up in the main, come down, clean up what was in the natural, and then once that was either pushed out or cleaned up, a wave of drones would come and place creep colonies to get the sunkens. Yep. And then it looks like Banana Brain's going to give the GG here, and Monster's going to move on to the finals.
Yeah, absolutely insane games and fantastic showing from Monster. Monster, of course, one of the newer bots that we have out here. I mean, obviously the AI creator is experienced, but it's so exciting to see a new bot, in the finals here of SSCAIT 2020 through 2021.
Yep, and so let's go ahead and jump into that. Stardust versus Monster. And so game 1 of the finals between Stardust and Monster has us on Tau Cross, with Stardust spawning as the blue Protoss in the bottom right of the map.
And we have Monster spawning at the top right as the orange Zerg.
And this is a best of 7 series. And if Monster is able to defeat Stardust, we'll actually get a second best of 7 series, because double elimination, Stardust has to be eliminated twice to be permanently eliminated from the tournament.
Yes, absolutely. And it should be noted that these two did face off earlier in the bracket, where Stardust claimed a 3-0 victory, abusing the fact that on certain maps, the geyser is pointed towards the entrance to the base. We saw that on the bottom right of Fighting Spirit for Monster, and then again on the right base of Heartbreak Ridge. Notably in this case, Monster's gas is pointed towards the edge of the map, so safe from any Dragoon pressure later on.
Yeah, and Stardust, or actually Monster, is pretty lucky that it didn't spawn in Stardust's position, because if it had, the gas would be facing that entrance into the main.
Actually, either of the other two bases, it would have been a problem. So it actually got the 1 in 3 chance that it gets the base that works for it. And it should be noted that Stardust is also going for that 2 gateway play. If we remember, it generally goes for a couple of Zealots, and then it transitions into 4 Gate Dragoons. So completely different from what we saw in the previous series, with Banana Brain going for the more human-esque FFE build.
Yeah, so we should see that early pressure coming from Stardust, I think. We do have the Cybernetics core started down. Looks like Monster did an in-base. So yeah, we're seeing the exact same build, which it's fascinating to, since we're seeing 2 series back-to-back with Monster, to see those 2 different, build orders from it, where before it was going for fast expansion, and now here it's going for that in-base second hatchery, and for the very quick lair.
You know what I really, really love about what just happened here in the natural of Monster? The probe was chilling there, and the first 2 Zerglings ran, and the first Zergling just ignored the probe completely. I'm like, huh, AI. And then the second one started attacking the probe, and I'm like, huh, so like at some point there has to be made the decision that that first Zergling, it's more important to scout the front of my enemy's base and burrow to prevent the Nexus than it is to chase this probe. So they're like, yes, I just wanted to point out how on point the coders are for Monster and Stardust here.
And now we have that early pressure from Stardust arriving at Monster's base, going into the main area. But there are 3 Sunkens there. This looks pretty well protected to me.
Yeah, there is the possibility to wrap around over the left side, which could be really annoying, especially with Mass Dragoon numbers, but I don't think that Stardust is going to go for that. These AI tend to not look for alternate paths that often. Looks like they're just going to run right in here, and the drone's burrowing, I think, like preemptively here. They did not need to burrow for that.
Yeah, and I think that may be just due to, because like I was saying before, some AIs just have this logic when they dive into these like sunken lines and engage with Zerg. If I can get shots off on drones, prioritize that. And so that might be what that preemptive burrowing is, even though Stardust doesn't seem to do that. It's just like, just in case.
Mm-hmm. And it should be noted that Stardust just now adding that cannon, and it's natural. It's had the probe there for quite some time, but it was pumping more units. It's actually up to 6 gateways now, which I don't think even Stardust can produce from off of one base. Looking maybe that that Zergling delayed the Nexus significantly enough to mess with the build order there from Stardust.
Yeah, and just as you were saying that, I saw there were only like 3 Dragoons under construction at a time, so only like half the gateways, and then it had to save up for the Nexus, so now we only have 2 Dragoons producing, but we have all those minerals sitting in those gateways. But at the same time, it couldn't plop down that Nexus till that cannon finished, so it's kind of like, did it really waste those minerals, or...
And it should be noted also that the hatchery placement from Monster is really right in the line of sight of the Dragoons. They take down that hatchery. They took down the Lurker when it was in transition as well, despite the fact that there's no observers. This is the problem that the core Brood War AI has with using Lurkers. Kind of moves in too close before it burrows and gets picked off. We're seeing that happen here, but the Dragoons do back off. It should be noted that drop play is now being active here. A couple of Zerglings got dropped out by Monster there, now loading up more units.
Yeah, and I don't think that was necessarily a case of Stardust finding an opening. That third hatchery there was just kind of like naturally in the concave that those Dragoons were forming to try and take on the Sunkens.
And now we're seeing the circuitous drop going along the top border of the map, but the question is it going to be able to hold at home long enough? Those units could have been useful here in defense. There is quite a lot of Protoss here. Yeah,
and even if they make it in there, like, the base is pretty much gone at this point.
Mm-hmm. And there are cannons in every mineral line, well, soon to be every mineral line, if that third base gets taken. It looks like it's actually taking an expansion for itself.
Yeah, so something that I've noticed from these games it seems like Monster is doing is it's going for this 2-hatch Lurker play, and then not even being aggressive with it. And then when it goes, and then there it's given the GG. But it seems to be using that drop to just move about the map.
So in the bottom right here, we have Stardust, the white Protoss, who is up 1-0 in the series.
And over in the top right, we have Monster spawning as the blue Zerg, and we are on Roadrunner.
So first thing to note here, the gas for Monster is in the safer position. It's above the hatchery, away from the ramp, but in the last game, it didn't really seem to make that much of a difference, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it seems like Monster really struggles with dealing with the contain that gets set up by this 2 gateway play from Stardust. And to be honest, like if I were playing against Stardust and trying to do what Monster's doing, I don't know what I would do.
And it also, like, I think that second hatchery, we did see one game, I believe it was on Destination maybe, where I believe it was Monster too, who placed it closer to the ramp, and then the Sunkens were on the top of the ramp, which made for a much better funnel of the units, as opposed to it being, you know, deep in its main base, where the Dragoons can kind of get that beautiful arc we saw in the last game.
And just as you're talking about that, Monster planted its second hatchery closer to the ramp, so I think we're going to see something similar in this game.
I sure hope so, and it should be noted that the build order is slightly different. I believe we went hatchery before pool this time, so it has deviated away from the opening we've been seeing.
I wonder if that's related to the fact that it needs more time for that creep to spread to actually get good position of the creep colonies.
So it wants to get the hatchery earlier so we can get that properly positioned creep colony earlier. That would make sense. That's part of the reason why hatchery first builds are good against 2-gate is because of the fact that you get that creep spread earlier. You can place the Sunkens in more opportune times and places. One thing that I do want to note, though, is that Stardust, it does not move out with its first 3 Zealots, even though for a regular 2-gate execution, normally you would want to. And is that specifically because you want to hit before those Sunkens are finished?
Yeah, that is something that I've noticed too, because like when I've played as 2-gate as a player, like my first Zealot, I'm just marching straight up, and Stardust really sits back until it gets its first Dragoon, and it's really, it almost feels like this is more like a 4-gate build, but getting 2 gateways at the start.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 gateways does make sense, because if it is a Zergling heavy build, you do need that production to hold the ramp, especially on maps where there is no ramp or reverse ramp. But in this situation, I don't think that waiting is really worthwhile, especially with the Sunkens now on the high ground here, positioned quite nicely for the ramp. It would have maybe been nicer if there were maybe another unit or 2 forward, but nope, they're going to take down that Dragoon with the quickness, as they say.
Yeah, and I noticed too that there is that burrowed Zergling over at the base on the right there. And so Monster's actually, with this, able to kind of keep tabs on the units that are coming over to it.
Yeah, and it's blocking both the natural as well with the burrowed Zergling. It's worth its weight in gold, I think, in this matchup. The fact that it has to force a pylon, force a cannon, when Stardust is already trying to pump from 4, 5, 6 gateways we're going up to now. So I think it strikes at a time when it's really inconvenient for Stardust not to be able to throw down an excess.
Yeah, and something we were talking about at the end of the last game there, where it's doing this one base lurker play and then getting the transport. And we saw in the last game and in previous games where it's using that transport not aggressively, but to just move about the map. So it's almost like Monster is expecting this type of contain to happen, and then is relying on transport to get its troops out instead of trying to take a base out.
Yeah, I feel like if Monster maybe, as we spoke about it earlier, this is clearly superior to what we've seen in other games where, again, in this matchup between Stardust and Monster, this seems to be the play. The using the choke to its advantage here. This is how it stays alive long enough in order to utilize this tricky lurker play to establish more bases. In that game on Destination between, I believe it was Monster and Stardust, where it held on for quite a long time, it was thanks to this, high ground placement.
Yeah, and now we do have the 2 overlords going up into the top right and around the edge of the map, but I suspect they're probably going to stop at the other main.
They could take this near high ground as well, but there is 2 entrances to it, so not ideal. The other main might be the play here. Normally what you would see in more standard ZVPs is the Zerg takes the natural, because that helps it secure both bases, but with lurkers and ramps, it is more prudent to take them this way by taking that high ground expansion, still saving up the minerals for it, though.
Yep. And I noticed too that it did take 3 Zerglings with it as well, and those Zerglings are now patrolling other bases. They're not burrowing to block anything, but it's interesting to note that it did bring those scouts out because it knows, okay, well, I'm contained. I can't get those scouts out any other way.
Yeah, and you need to limit the expansion rate of Stardust. If the Protoss ball gets rolling, this build, as you said, it's very sedentary for Monster. You know, it's not looking to move out. It's quite content to just sit here. It puts itself economically behind to get interesting tech leverage there. I do want to note that one of the Zerglings did burrow at the other main, the 8 o'clock base, but the other 2 Zerglings, they're patrolling so they can cover 2 bases at once, and we actually see the Overlord transporting drones now to the expansion right when the hatchery pops. Really nicely timed there.
Yeah, and there's a burrowed Zergling that's currently, well, now it just killed a probe and is attacking a cannon, but down in the bottom left, I don't know when that Zergling got there, but it's causing some problems.
Yeah, that one's actually been there from very early on in the game. This is one of the first few Zerglings that were sent out to block bases. But yeah, Stardust, it just doesn't know how to push up against these Sunkens, and it really shouldn't. It should be, like, you know, obviously it's easy for us to say, but it could be up on like 5 bases right now if it wanted to be, but these burrowed Zerglings are throwing a wrench in the works, I feel like.
Yeah, and you were talking about the destination game before. We're seeing almost the same thing where Stardust gets stuck on, and we're back in open BW for the rest of this game, as it did desync there at the end. We found out where the desync happened, which was actually right before this Zergling was to fall, and this base was to get up. So, yeah, very unfortunate that desynced, but we are back at it.
Yeah, and it is a crucial time in the game. Getting that 3rd base so important for Stardust. It will not be able to continue producing this army from that many gateways from only 2 bases for much longer. If you notice, the main base is basically mined out.
Yeah, and very full of gateways, and although now it's got more space for them.
Mm-hmm. And I like this layout a lot. You kind of see a lot of both AI and players throw around their production facilities kind of willy-nilly. I'm much more of an obsessive compulsive person with it. It has to be just right, and I give Stardust layout, it's an easy A- for me.
Yeah, I really like this big wide open space here for them to move. There's nothing really, I mean, maybe you could end up with some Dragoon, like a Dragoon here and here, depending on if these get crowded, but as long as you keep moving units, which the AI is going to do, that's more than likely not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty sure that those are all Dragoon safe gateway placements there on top of that, which is of course really important for Stardust, which is known for its Dragoon play. And it's starting to get a little adventurous trying to push up this hill. The Sunkens are still not, I mean, they are hitting right at the cusp of that ramp, so they are taking down quite a number of Dragoons now.
Yeah, and I think one of the strengths of Stardust, I think, actually works against it in these situations, because it's very good at, and we are shutting down a 3rd base here, that one that you were talking about earlier that you thought Monster might take. It was trying to take it now, and it's getting shut down by only 4, because Monster really doesn't have a lot of mobile defense, so it's got these 2 lurkers here, which are now being taken down, which did hold those off, but like it can't really move this Hydralisk army anywhere, though it's starting to get adventurous now that the Dragoons have moved out of the place.
Yeah, the Dragoons reprioritized killing that other base, which is, of course, a sound strategy. It's Monster's only source of income now, but in the process, they've kind of taken the lid off the cannon. A lot of Hydralisks come out. They use the doodads there to their advantage to take down some Dragoons, but there's still quite a lot of Protoss army out there.
Yeah, and we should note, too, that Monster's army is trying to get up to that base to save it, but at this point now, the Sunkens have fallen. Because there was only the one hatchery here, the Sunkens did not have the high ground advantage, and what I was talking about before with the Stardust AI kind of working against itself is it has like the stutter step, like fire, stop, or like stop, fire, move, stop, fire, move. And when it's doing this low ground, high ground, it like ends up just clogging up this ramp, when what you really want to do is you want to run up a bit into the Sunkens first, and then so that way more of them can be firing up in there.
Yeah, I think of that meme that's like yes, yes, no, no, no. Like it looks like it's like I have a lot of Dragoons here. I should be able to push up anywhere, and then like, you know, it takes its first step up the ramp, and that's when the Sunkens hit, and the Dragoons like nope, 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 nope. But it's continuing to hemorrhage a lot of Dragoons here. Some of that blue soup on the ramp there.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the situations where definitely, you know, you can't break this, but if you want to deal damage or you want your opponent to have to spend its resources on replacing things, you have to be willing to sacrifice things. Like, kind of like there, it's doing a little bit better marching some of the Dragoons up, but it's not getting enough of them up there to get more shots off.
And there has been an expansion actually at the bottom left kind of position, mid left maybe. Snuck it up somehow. I'm not sure if Stardust is aware of it.
Yeah, and it looks like Stardust is actually taking the other main that Monster had.
That is interesting. And could you check that 4 o'clock base again? Is that pylon blocking? No, yeah, sorry. 6. I guess that's 4 o'clock actually. Yeah, it's actually the Zergling there blocking it. I think that Stardust should be mined out of its natural by now. So almost. Yeah.
So this is now. So we kind of had like the same sort of thing happen on Destination, where it struggled to get its third. And now I think the same sort of thing is playing out here, where it's struggling to get its fourth, but it's kind of stopped sending probes because it's getting a fourth over here.
Yeah, this game feels to me more like a Destination light, and that's because I think that Destination really lends itself to Monster's playstyle. Of course, that long, narrow bridge leading to that kind of like almost island-like gas expansion nestled in the Destination bases. This lurker drop expand build works really well for that. There's a lot of safe bases on that map, so both players in that game were able to reach a high base count. In this game, it's taking a lot longer to get there.
Yeah, and it looks like Monster is going for a similar army composition that we've seen in the other games tonight. We do have the Mutalisks now starting to come out, but it just, it only has this mining base. The main is now mined out. I don't think it's going to have the resources to really do what it wants to do, even with Stardust kind of crippling itself in a way, but it is now getting a 5th base.
I did see that a unit went over towards that sneaky expansion from Monster. I'm not sure if it was spotted or not. I believe at least the lurkers were spotted. The lurkers, I mean, if it didn't work the first time, I don't know why Monster thinks it would work a second time. Maybe it's just hoping that it doesn't get caught. But these Dragoons, they're just intent on pushing up here. They have taken down one of the Sunkens already. Money is understandably tight for Monster at the moment, so...
Yeah, and I don't think that Stardust is aware of this base. I don't know that they really... Oh, maybe it is because it does have... They're walking in place.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it has the logic that, if there are lurkers at the ramp, that must mean there's an expansion there. A lot of the times, they're going to either, maybe go by the fact that there's creep there and they're up against a Zerg. But a lot of AIs need to see a building to know that something's going on over there.
Yeah, and Monster, I mean, when it took that that base at 11 o'clock for the first time, I feel like if it had just expanded that sunken line to the ramp more, yeah, the Dragoon dance, I love it. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no.
Yeah, it's interesting too, like some of the things, they're the Dragoons all stacking on each other too.
Oh, God.
It's interesting when you can have frame perfect inputs, what you can kind of make these units do.
Absolutely.
And now they're just getting destroyed here because they're not even getting shots off because the engine's too busy trying to unstack the units.
Yeah, and it's also funny to me the fact that humans have been able to harness this power. Have you seen the super stacked recall thing?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can do this, and then you can drop a massive recall on a Terran's base.
Yeah, so, and it's like you can start that I think by like morphing an Archon or something with all the units jumbled up. I think, isn't it? Or that's one way to do it.
I think the more common one is with a probe, like bringing minerals or something like that. Like you use the return cargo and then stop it. It starts this stacking thing. I think the Archon thing is a factor as well. But either way, yeah, this game has so many interesting little nuances that can, Mutalisk stacking for one, but in this case, ramps with the 53% mischance uphill, I believe, for Dragoons shooting uphill. So in the game, like manual, it said that I think it was like you have like an 80% chance to hit, but it's actually 53 or something.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if that changed in some patch, if they made high ground a bit more effective, and that would make the manual then wrong. I do want to note too, real quick here, that Banana Brain has taken another base, and also Monster has taken another base, which is about to be discovered here.
Yeah, this has become interesting. It's kind of like the unstoppable force and the immovable object. Stardust has to devote some energy into taking out this expansion. Has to stop trying to bust up this ungodly ramp in the main base.
Yeah,
I think it might take down this base.
I mean, if it were to fail to take this base, which doesn't look like it's going to happen, I would say Monster would be very much alive in the game because of what we saw against Banana Brain, where I think that was game 3. Everything's running together in my head now.
Yeah.
Where Yeah, where it kept like, being down in bases and down in workers, but then it just kept killing the army and was able to come back because Zerg's army is so much cheaper.
Yeah, and the Mutalisks also playing a significant role there. I would love to see them here. I think that this game would be ripe for some forced expenditure on Stardust we have, but it busts up the ramp here with the only 2 lurkers, and I feel that Monster's time is limited on this map.
Yeah, and I mean, this base is almost mined out, and it's the only mining base for monsters. So at this point, I think we're going to be in one of those situations of and there's the drone just chilling there with the tiny Vespene gas.
Yeah, offering to the creep gods before I make this colony.
But yeah, at this point now, it's just a matter of, Stardust churning through enough units through the meat grinder here. So I'll go ahead and speed us up to 4x, I think.
Yeah, and I remember we spoke about this, I think, in the chat of one of the broadcasts. But could you go over again what the scores that are used to calculate? Like, because I remember I said that, what if you just mine all the resources on the map? And you told me that resources are not factored into the score victory. Is that correct?
That is correct. So I sometimes mix them up a little bit, but I know raise, which is building destruction, kill score is also included. And then there is one more. It's not resources. It might be unit creation.
Yeah, that would be a way to balance it out, because in this case, Monster would have definitely, I think, had the units killed score here, just by the number of Dragoons it's destroyed on this ramp.
Right, but given the way that this ended, I would venture to guess that, and we'll verify the results and let you know when we start the game 3 here, but probably Monster GG'd out, because if we look at the situation, it has 6 workers. Where are they?
No minerals and being contained. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, they're burrowed probably somewhere.
Yeah, I was trying to see. They're not over here. This has cannons, so they're not there. They're not there. Those were the last known base locations, so I'm not sure where the 6...
They're loaded up in an Overlord, maybe?
They might be, and we can't check that in OpenBW.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking this is the case because it can't even build a hatchery. And a lot of AIs will have logic in them where I can't gather anymore. They'll oftentimes wait until they don't have any army as well. But they'll have some type of logic there to realize, oh, this is an impossible situation, and they'll go ahead and GG out. So, like I said, we'll verify. We'll let you know at the start of the next game. But that's what I'm thinking is happening here.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's the case here as well.
So, game 3, after Stardust going up 2-0 against Monster, we see Stardust spawning as the white Protoss on Neo Moonglaive, I think it was, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Up at the 12 o'clock position.
And at the 8 o'clock position, we have Monster as the brown Zerg. Something that should be noted is that this is again a ramped map, so that does favor Monster strategy a little bit more than the reverse ramp or no ramp maps.
Yep, and I'm just kind of watching. Okay, so that first drone is going out, which it would have been early for it to be moving to build a hatchery. Interesting the way that it was scouting there, because it kind of poked up that ramp for a second, and then it decided to go the complete opposite direction.
Well, if you recall, I believe it was Krazio P who, that's exactly where it proxied cannons against Terran players, so maybe that is a popular proxy location.
Ah, okay. And what do you think about this hatchery placement?
This hatchery placement, it's a bit far. I don't think it's gonna be able to place Sunkens at the ideal location to use that choke point.
Yeah, I wonder if it only uses the ramp on particular maps then. This will be interesting to see where it places them.
Yeah, it's hard to tell at this point. What I'm really interested in is like how we arrived at this point, of this build order. Like the amount of gas that you need to expend in order to make lurkers, both defensively and for your expansion, and to get drop tech and overlord speed off of one gas, that takes a long time. So this build must work against someone. And by the way, there's like a party. The Zealots let the drone out. And look, the drone's like, yo, let me back in, actually.
The song, Who Let the Dogs Out, it's Who Let the Drone Out.
Yeah, and the Zealots are keeping it as its pets. Like, you can't come in, but we're not gonna kill you. I've never seen anything like this before.
I think all three of them could just unleash an attack on it and it would die. Just
Yes.
They're just like, nope, you're our friend. You're cool. You're chill.
Uh-oh. The Dragoons are out now, though. Dragoons might have, the Dragoons signal the alarm.
Yeah, the Zealots are like, oh no, we're caught. Yeah, sure, I'll attack this drone.
Yeah.
And to note, too, these Sunkens are very far back. They are not taking advantage of the ramp.
Yeah, absolutely not. The Dragoons still might have a hard time even engaging us this hatchery because of the fact that they kind of need to walk up a bit first. They might still walk into Sunken Fire. Let's see if that happens. Yeah, straight up into the Sunkens. There's only 2 done this time, though. I believe at this time before we had 3. Now the 3rd one finishing.
Yeah, and Dragoon range is not quite yet finished. And I do want to note, too, I wonder if that was targeting or not. The Dragoon was the only one taking Sunken shots, so I wonder if they prioritize Dragoons to Zealots, or if that was just chance that was happening.
I mean, given the number of Dragoons we see falling all the time, I think it's quite possible. I mean, we'd also know for a fact that it does prioritize Reavers as well, so it could quite possibly be prioritizing those Dragoons.
Yeah, and
now they found that angle.
Yeah, they were like kind of finding it, but they were still dancing a little bit, so taking some unnecessary shots. It seems like when a new unit pops out or comes into range, they want to hit that instead of the hatchery, so then they wander into range, but this is going to fall here.
I think they're also trying to fit as many Dragoons in the arc as possible, like new units come, so they shuffle around to see like maybe I could squeeze one more, DPS. But it looks like the bust is on now. A lot of Sunkens haven't gone down. This final Sunken looks like it is going to go down as well. Hydras are not in number to hold this.
Yeah, and now with no defense, they're just going straight after the drones. I think now they're morphing into Sunkens. So yeah, I don't think Monster can withstand this, but I will note real quick that the Zergling again delaying the second until that cannon is done.
The first lurker gets picked off there with the last shot, and Monster types in the GG. Stardust responds with a GG. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and something I'll notice too. Actually, forget if I mentioned at the start of this that we did confirm that. Because I said Stardust went up 2-0. Stardust is GGing here with workers still on the map. So, I think the end of that last game was an early, well, not early as in it shouldn't have, but, the AI actually recognizing this is a losing position, I will GG out of the game.
Yeah, like a 0% win chance, basically. Yep. I definitely see that. And yeah, even with all the cute tricks with blocking the natural with the burrowed Zerglings, it seems like what makes or breaks Monster's ability to survive at least into the mid game is the positioning of those Sunkens. And the map, of course.
Yeah, and so with that, Stardust is going to go up 3-0 and be in position to take this tournament with a victory in the next game. Monster fighting to stay alive. Let's go ahead and hop into Game 4.
And here on Destination at the 12 o'clock base, up 3-0, and at match point is Stardust as the yellow Protoss.
And we have Monster here as the purple Zerg down at the bottom base, and so this is actually the flipped position from that infamous Destination game we've been discussing. And that one, I think Monster was up at the top.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And it was probably one of the lengthiest games of not just the tournament, but between these two as well. So I believe that maybe we have the potential for a Monster comeback here. We definitely saw it against Banana Brain in the previous series. It would be interesting to see it happen here as well.
Yeah, and so let's see here. We do have, it looks like, the same builds coming from these two. And again, we have this early drone scout from Monster to check out the situation. I don't know how I feel about that early of a drone scout.
I think it might be warranted because it is going actually for 12 hatch. So that is actually the most economical build that it has gone for so far. 12 hatch, it looks most likely it was 11 pool. The reason why is because if there's a proxy going on, you can't actually go for 12 hatch. 12 hatch is only good against in the Protoss base 2 gateways. So maybe before throwing down that hatchery, I wanted to verify the fact that there was indeed gateways in the main base.
Yeah, and something else to point out too, from something I think you were discussing in an earlier match. We see a completely different play style from Monster when it's up against Stardust than when we watched it up against. I just realized I had the info for each of the players hidden there on accident, so just brought that back up. But then we've seen against Banana Brain. Banana Brain, we saw much more what I would call a standard Zerg play, against Protoss, and then every game against Stardust, we're seeing this 2-hatch lurker play.
Yeah, and like given the outcomes that we've seen so far, I find it hard to believe that this is the build that has the most success, because it hasn't, it seems so map dependent. It seems so dependent on the first placement of those Sunkens. In this case, those Sunkens are placed pretty much perfectly, in my opinion.
Yeah, and while there is not so much of a metagame between AI versus AI by the actual AIs, sometimes we do see some metagames that can happen between authors.
Yes.
I think you were talking about, or maybe this was off camera, how, typically authors aren't going to prepare things specifically for certain opponents.
Yeah.
Because typically it's much more economical to spend your time working on something that's going to work across the board. But you do occasionally see instances of that where, and we do have this push up the ramp here real quick, just want to talk about here, and he is going to wisely back off. But you do sometimes see some instances of that, and I almost wonder if this particular build is something like that. Like Monster saw some version of Stardust where this worked, but the Stardust that got submitted for tournament, this just isn't working. And actually, I wish I could look at the round robin, and maybe I will after this game, to see how Monster did against Stardust in the round robin, because I'm really curious about that now.
Yeah, their head-to-head statistics should be interesting here. The cannon going down, it feels like a little bit earlier than in previous games to clear up the natural here from the Burrowed Zergling. And this is kind of what I was talking about earlier too, is the fact that we're still just now getting the Overlord capacity upgrade for transporting units. Off of one gas, he's gotten Hydralisks, he's gotten Lurkers, he's gotten Overlord speed, he's getting Overlord drop. It takes a long time to get to that gas off of one Vespian Geyser.
Yeah, I also wonder too, because I was just talking about the metagame thing, I wonder, we've seen Stardust also do the same build every time against Monster, so I wonder if there's some build that Stardust has in its arsenal that perhaps the author, and I'm sure these authors are going to be in the audience watching this, so we'll probably be able to chat with you live to discuss this, but I wonder if there was some build that Stardust has that this just build from Monster just absolutely destroyed. But Stardust's author was like, no, if you're fighting Monster, do 2-gate.
I mean, it applies enough map control to keep it occupied to prevent those it from taking its own ramp. But as we see here, as we mentioned in previous games, this bridge is quite ideal for lurkers. There's this bridge in particular, I believe the bottom one, Reaver Scarabs really behave weirdly when trying to cross it. So it's actually much better than even being on a high ground ramp, in my opinion, against Reavers in particular.
Oh, that was something I didn't know, that lower bridge, is that just on this bottom half? Like in both bridges are fine up top?
I think it might be both, but I think the bottom one, at least in my experience, has been the most notorious for it. The Reavers just refuse to shoot across. That's really what happens. And I'm sure Freakling would know a lot about that. It probably has to do with like meta levels of terrain and stuff that goes over my head. But in this case, it is going to work in Monster's favor. I still feel the Sunkens are a little bit too far behind though.
Yeah, the Sunkens really are not that good of an arc, but I noticed that Monster is trying to clear out the neutral, or the 0 minerals here. And every time it did, it kind of lured some of Stardust's army up. And then interestingly enough, as I was talking there, Monster's army kind of came down, said hi to Stardust, and left, and nobody shot. Nobody attacked anybody.
And there was a drone coming from the bridge expansion. It kind of went into the middle of the map, saw Stardust's whole entire army, turned around, was like, yeah, never mind, and just went all the way back, and they didn't, no interaction there either. They just kind of kept going their own separate ways.
I wonder if that's actually part of what made Stardust pull back, because now that the observers are out, it is finding this base over here, but I wonder if that drone kind of pulled the army back, kind of like, hey, what's going on? And then when nothing happened, it just went okay and kind of went back.
So this base is going to go down. There was not enough Hydralisks to fight this mass. There's just way too many Dragoons.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what you're saying. Like, Monster's gas is at 40, off of one gas. Hydralisks are what, 75 gas each, I think, right?
25.
Okay, 25. So they're low on the gas cost, but it's just, you're not going to be able to compete with a Protoss that's on 2 bases pumping out Dragoons.
Yeah, absolutely not, especially after all the early investment that you do into getting that tech that Lurker tech, the Overlord techs, that's a lot of early potential gains wasted. I mean, keep in mind that he's on 2 hatcheries for most of that time. Is trying to set up this natural now, though. Again, the bridges may be working in his favor, but the army looks like it's going to ignore the Lurker and try to run in here.
Yeah, oh, I see what you're talking about, the natural. I was actually looking over at Stardust by his main. Monster's taking a base there too, and there were some units there. I don't think he actually knows the expansion is there, though. I think it was more just some units were luring them in that direction, but now it does seem to be taking out some Sunkens here at the main, pushing into this.
It's starting to get a little dicey. There is a really long line of Sunkens, though, so they're going to have a great arc throughout this. More Sunkens are being added, so it's actually the Dragoons that are going to falter first here, I think. That's getting kind of close. One of those front colonies is very weakened now. Can't form into a sunken colony with that amount of HP, and it's actually looking like the bust might be on.
Yeah, and I think what happened here, I was looking at Monster's minerals, after losing that second base and then trying to invest in 2 bases at once, it just did not have minerals to produce Hydralisks. A lot of the time what was saving it from these busts is a round of Hydralisks popping out.
Yeah.
I do want to comment, though, I love that these very damaged creep colonies, and I even saw a sunken colony cancel back into a creep when its HP was low. Not wasting the money on morphing those. That is very heads up.
And the heads up from the Dragoons as well to not even waste the shots on them when there's more pressing targets, because it recognizes that now the Zerg, there's no way that it's going to morph that creep colony. Therefore, I can just leave it alone and focus my targeting on something more valuable.
Yeah, and Monster at this point now is 1 base away from getting knocked out of the tournament, and Stardust is 1 base away from taking this tournament win.
Yeah, and it should be again noted that both of these, and the GG is right there. Congratulations to Stardust with a clean sweep 4-0 victory in the grand finals of the SSCAIT 2020 through 2021 tournament. So Nightcat, what did you think of that series, and what did you think of Stardust's run throughout this tournament as a whole?
Well, for this series in particular, I'm glad that we didn't get any games where the gas was in a vulnerable position. So we got to see, the essentially the 2 builds that these bots were throwing at each other play out in full in each game. Like I was talking about in that last game, I really do wonder if this was a case of sort of the authors metagaming each other, because it just feels kind of unusual to see 2 bots at this high of a seed using the same build game in and game out against each other. So it really feels like both authors were very confident in those particular builds against those particular opponent. And so, I wonder if in that case it just ended up working out for Stardust, because I think there have been instances like that in the past where somebody prepared something particular for an opponent and then that opponent just threw something completely different at them in the tournament.
Yeah, and maybe it's actually Lines Prower, the creator of Monster, who was trying to mix it up a little bit too much, perhaps, because that is not a build that you would normally see anyone do, really. And to have it be your kind of bread and butter against Stardust, especially considering the strength of its 3-base Hydralisk play, as we saw in its previous ZVP series, I'm honestly surprised that that's the build that was chosen. And someone had to, I feel like that build had to be like theory crafted up. Someone came up with it, and I believe dropping to take island bases and to take expansions in the first place is a really relatively recent addition to like the common things that bots do. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, most bots really, and most authors don't spend a whole lot of time on developing for that particular thing. And actually thinking about it, I don't think we had in either series here in round 3 between Stardust and Monster and the finals, none of the maps that were chosen had island maps. So now that you mention, or not island maps, sorry, island expansions. But now that you mention it, I'm really curious how a game would have played out between these two had there been a base like that. Would, Monster have expanded to it? Would that have played out differently? Would Stardust have been able to attack it? Maybe that was something that Monster was really hoping for, was to get maps with that there. But in the end, it just didn't get any of them in those 2 series. And
yeah, and even when it did get maps that would be quote unquote good for this strategy, like Destination, for example, as we said, it got Destination in both series. It still wasn't managing to clinch it out, even when it looked like the stars were all aligned for it to do what it needed to do.
Yeah, it seemed like it's like something was just quite missing from that build. And I don't quite know what it was, because if it was very fun to see that unique build, because I don't think I've seen a Zerg on the ladder try to do something like that before. But it just seemed to be missing like that punch, that something that would give it an advantage out of it. So it would be really cool to see that build worked a little bit more maybe in a future tournament. But that's also still credit to Stardust, because if we just look at, you were talking about it through this tournament, it went 3-0, 3-0, 3-0, 3-2, 4-0. It was very, very dominant in this tournament against all of the opponents it faced, and it was the number 2 seed that it lost games to in this elimination phase.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that was a really interesting set of builds as well for Stardust versus Banana Brain, with the Proxy 2 gate against the fast Nexus type plays. I do remember that series. It was a nail biter because of the fact that there seemed to be some stubbornness in the AIs there as well. But I do want to make it clear that we should be congratulating Monster as well. This is the first time that either of these bots were finalists for the tournament, with Purple Wave having won the previous 2 years. And these 2 bots, I believe, having been, finalized during this past year. So 2 new bots coming in and taking the 1 and 2 spots. It's a really exciting time for StarCraft AI, I think.
Yeah, and also, since we talked about Stardust's path through the tournament, if we look at Monster, I mean, the series we're at 1, we have 3-0, 3-0, then it lost to the person who took the tournament, 0-3, but then when it got knocked down here into the losers bracket, we have a 2-0, and then we have a 2-1 against the 6th seed, and a 2-1 against the 2nd seed, which is seeded higher than Monster. So very impressive showing through the tournament as well. It's not like, and even if it was going like, 3-2, squeaking through rounds, it had a very dominant showing itself. But it's just one of the bots that had a more dominant showing when the 2 met against it was Stardust, who is the winner of the tournament.
Yeah, you can't feel bad about being double eliminated by the dominant champion here. It's still I remember when Monster first was released and people started noticing its climb. We reviewed a lot of its replays at that time in this SSCAIT broadcast. And people in the comments before that were saying, "Oh, why are there no Zerg AIs? Where's the best Zergs?" And well, here it is, getting 2nd place in this tournament to another phenomenal Protoss, but definitely showing promise for Zerg going into the future.
Yeah, and I think this is only the 2nd tournament that I've casted myself, and so I'm not super familiar with all of the finalists in the years past, but to see a Zerg in the finals, like you were commenting, people are asking, where's Zerg? Like, feeling like Zerg's being underrepresented in the AI scene. Here we had a PVZ final. So it's great to see the work and the development of it. And I know, McRave Z, for instance, who was in the round robin phase, did not make it into the elimination phase. McRave Z has really good Mutalisk control, which is something that has been lacking. Not really like Mutalisk usage, but I mean like, choosing where to target and choosing when to dive in and things like that. Has not always been the easiest thing for Zergs to code. We are starting to see some more powerful Zerg AIs, so maybe, how this is a very heavy Terran and Protoss mix of bots here at the start, maybe we'll start to see more Zergs working their way in here.
Yeah, it's definitely something to look forward to. I want to congratulate again Stardust and Monster for a fantastic showing, for a fantastic grand finals. Also, shout outs to Banana Brain as well for a really entertaining losers finals there. That was a great series. Had a lot of fun there. And shout outs to all the viewers, all the supporters of SSCAIT. Thank you. I'll leave the floor to you, Nightcat, if you have any shout outs you want to give.
It's pretty much the same ones that you just gave. I also want to give a shout out, to the organizer behind the SSCAIT tournament as well, without whom this tournament will not happen. And I want to do a shout out to Antigua as well for hosting the SSCAIT Discord channel, which I believe is linked in the description below. So, if you want to chat with the authors, or if you want to look into writing a bot yourself, possibly entering into next year's tournament, it's a great place to ask questions. Pretty much all of the authors are very friendly, willing and happy to help out new people getting started. I know I have a bot that competes in this as well. It's never made it to the elimination phase, but the other authors there were instrumental in helping me get that thing going. So it's a very friendly scene, and the more the merrier, for sure.
Yep, I have to agree with everything you said. I definitely second that. A lot of great communication happening in the Discord channels. We discuss interesting bugs and map features and AI things there. A lot of stuff that's above my above my understanding, but definitely something that would be interesting for anyone who's into AI in general as well. So I think that about does it for me. Thank you all for watching. This has been Chobos Wagons, and this has been another SSCIT report. Take care.
And this has been Nightcat. Until next time, stay safe.